the leader of the National Rally Party in France, in a Breitbart News exclusive interview on Monday called on French President Emmanuel Macron to resign the presidency, but said he is not honest or bold enough to recognize his worldview has been defeated. In the United Kingdom, Le Pen noted, David Cameron stepped down as Prime Minister when the British people voted to leave the European Union back in 2016. And in 2019, Le Pen noted, Prime Minister Theresa May announced her plans to resign after the Brexit Party defeated her party and all others in the UK's European Parliament elections. Le Pen told Breitbart News that Macron should definitely follow Cameron's and May's leads and resign from the French presidency. But Macron has neither the honesty to do it, nor the panache to do it, Le Pen said. Even if Macron hangs onto the presidency and refuses to resign despite the stinging defeat in this weekend's elections, Le Pen told Breitbart News that Macron must dissolve parliament immediately and hold new elections as soon as possible. They should happen immediately because of yesterday's results, but mostly because of Macron's posture during the election, where he was not the warrantor of the constitution but he became an active player in one of the parties, Le Pen said in a more than 20-minute phone interview on Monday in the wake of her party's win over Macron's in the European Union elections. Once he engaged, it became his personal responsibility. He should take into consideration the results and call for elections. Le Pen's National Rally, rebranded from the old National Front party her father founded that she took over, surged into first place in the European Union elections in France this weekend. Le Pen's party won more than 24% of the vote compared with Macron's Republic on the Move, which finished under 22%. Speaking through a translator via phone for the exclusive interview on Monday, Le Pen explained the victory and why she believes her party won, while Macron's was defeated. There are two main reasons, one is a European reason, and the other is on a national basis. Macron, in the early stages of the campaign, presented himself as the leader of the European Union that the French people do not want anymore, Le Pen said. The European Union despises the people. The European Union protects unfair competition, specifically with products coming from China. And more than anything, the European Union is fully open to immigration to the European Union that will be submerged. The second reason is a national reason. He established some policies, specifically on a fiscal level, that are particularly unjust and unfair to the popular classes, to the common person. For the past 2 years, he has displayed extreme arrogance and spite for the common people and the French people in general. What I and the list have been doing is explaining to the French people that the former divide between right and left wing does not exist anymore. And for the second time in a row, which means including the presidential election 2 years ago, the new divide is between the globalists and the nationalists. Twice in a row, this narrative that I have been explaining has become true and has been put in place by the vote of the French people. Yellow Vest protesters have been blaming Macron for losing the election. Le Pen said that while the Yellow Vest's impact on the election is difficult to assess, the bigger point is that people feel disenfranchised and not represented properly in their government. It is difficult to assess, but an essential part of our dysfunctional democracy in France, which is the lack of representativity of the National Assembly in France, Le Pen said. We are the first party in France with 24% yesterday in the European elections, and yet our party has 6 members in parliament out of 577. When democracy is so badly treated, it only can create tensions that are most likely irreversible. Le Pen has been campaigning on the narrative that the battle is no longer between the traditional left and right, but instead between the top and bottom, a globalists versus nationalists fight, and the contrast offers voters in elections around the world a clear choice. Globalism is a post-national spirit, Le Pen said when asked to explain the differences between globalism and nationalism. It carries a notion that borders must disappear, including the protection that such borders usually brings to a nation. It carries the concept that overwhelming markets decide about everything. This concept about globalism is pushed by technocrats that are never elected, and they are the typical type of person who runs things in Brussels in the European Union. The people that believe in nations, the nationalists, it's the exact opposite. They believe that nations are the most efficient way to protect national security, prosperity, and identity, to make sure that people will prosper in the nations. Le Pen, when asked by Breitbart News about how some critics of nationalism point to the dark history of nationalism in Europe to criticize it, shot down such criticisms as efforts to defame those who believe in the ideology. The objective of the globalists is to discredit anyone who defends a nation, and to shame them or to defame them, Le Pen said. It's specifically because a nation is the ground where democracy applies, where the people can decide. They do know that the people in fact do not agree with globalism. France was not alone over the weekend in electing right-wing nationalists to power in the European elections. In Italy, for instance, Matteo Salvini's League Party won big, and Le Pen says she looks forward to working with him in advancing the ideas of nationalism against globalism. For a very long time, our party has been working with Salvini, for example, but also with other parties in several countries in Europe to defend the idea of nations, Le Pen told Breitbart News. We are allied, but we also are friends. This specifically worries the globalists because they see that tomorrow they are going to face a real political alternative. The European Union cannot stand the idea of change or an alternative because it is in itself a totalitarian institution. Le Pen said there is great enthusiasm across Europe because of an unconditional love that nationalists have been expressing for their countries. What is being done, what these parties are doing right now, is a source of great enthusiasm, Le Pen said. Never since the beginning of the European Union has the possibility of a Europe of nations been so close. This is the reason why globalists are so violent and aggressive toward Matteo Salvini. But we are carried by something they cannot touch, that they cannot reach, an unconditional love we feel for our country and for our people. She said she sees National Rally, her party in France that just won big over Macron's globalists, as being in a central place in this new rising coalition. A central place, both delegations, the French and Italian, will be the largest national groups within this coalition at the European Parliament. Matteo Salvini and myself have always worked together very closely, even when we were both smaller on the political stage, and we have a way of seeing things and of working together, Le Pen said when asked where she sees herself in the National Rally in the bigger picture. While Italian and French nationalists are perhaps the closest in terms of working together, others from other countries, notably the Brexit party led by Nigel Farage in the United Kingdom and nationalists in Poland and Hungary as well, have been on the rise throughout Europe. Le Pen said that it is important for those who see the world similarly to work together to take on the globalists. What is going on in Europe right now is of historical magnitude, Le Pen told Breitbart News. Patriots from all countries must unite. But, she noted, it will be tougher for all nationalists to unite because of differences in opinion on some things, even though, she said, French nationalists have always defended core principles of nationalists in other nations. Getting together is a long trip, Le Pen said. In the European Parliament, we have always defended the idea that Hungary and Poland have a right to defend their people within the European Union. Same for the United Kingdom, we have always defended the idea that they were free to leave the European Union if they wanted to, as they expressed in their vote. We believe this is at the core of defending democracy. One does not negotiate with such essential notions. When asked if her vision aligns with that of President Donald Trump here in the United States, Le Pen said that if he believes in sovereignty, borders, and the right of a people to protect their national interest, then they do. If President Trump's vision of the world is that nations are to overcome empires and take over the destiny and the future of their people, in that case we fully share his view, Le Pen said. If his vision is to believe that the people of a country have a right to vote in order to protect their country and to make sure that their country comes first, in that case yes, I share his vision. Will we always share the same ideas? Will the interests of France and the United States always be aligned? This is a question, this is not sure, this is called diplomacy. She also said it was definitely easier to take on the globalists in Europe with Trump in the White House here in the United States. This was used against us during the European election, Le Pen said. The overwhelming power of the economy, the desire to defend popular classes, the middle class, our refusal of uncontrolled unrestrained immigration, the idea that protectionism is an idea to offer social benefits to countries that are importing goods, the belief that identity of the people has to be defended, are all definitely common points with President Trump. Gillette's latest advertisement sympathetically shows a woman transitioning to be a man with the help of male shaving products. The risky advert echoes the feminist campaign to blur the biological differences between men and women by suggesting that women can become men with the help of some Gillette shaving products. The main character says, "Growing up, I was always trying to figure out what kind of man I wanted to become, and I'm still trying to figure out what kind of man that I want to become. I'm glad I'm at the point where I'm able to shave, I'm at the point in my manhood where I'm actually happy. It is not just myself transitioning, it is everybody around me transitioning." The ad fades out, showing the corporate endorsement of the transgender claim, "Whenever, wherever, however, it happens, your first shave is special." The advertisement tries to marginalize the public's view that men should live up to their natural biology-based masculinity as a natural complement to women's natural biology-based femininity. Instead of associating their shaving products with the valued idea of masculinity, Gillette's managers associate their products with the feminist claim that men's masculinity is unrelated to biology and is instead socially constructed by vague forces in society. This feminist claim that the two male and female sexes are socially constructed is a vital political foundation for the transgender movement, which is now urging many teenage girls and boys, including depressed girls and gay boys, to reconstruct their bodies with the aid of surgeries, drugs, and hormones. But these teenage decisions have lifetime consequences. For example, teenage girls who start taking the male hormone testosterone quickly and irreversibly change the tone of their voice. A small but significant number of girls remove their breasts, despite the risk of pain and regret. A growing number of detransitioned women are reversing their claim to have switched sex, and are protesting the lack of caution within the medical industry. There is a rush to get hormones, even if you are not 100% sure you are trans, one young woman argues in her Twitter channel, at @GNC_centric, background facts and figures on transgender ideology. In general, the transgender ideology says a person's sex is determined by their gender identity, not by their biology. The ideology insists that men and women's bodies are more or less identical, and it objects to the public's view of the two sexes as simultaneously different, complementary, and equal. The transgender advocates want to impose their ideology on Americans by establishing transgender rights laws, which would require the Department of Justice to penalize individuals and groups that insist that women and girls are biologically different, and have different priorities, than men and boys. Transgender advocates claim that 2 million Americans say they are transgender to a greater or lesser extent. But very few people who describe themselves as transgender undergo transition surgery of the genitals. Only about 4,118 Americans surgically altered their bodies in hospitals from 2000 to 2014 to appear like members of the opposite sex, according to a pro-transgender medical study. A 2018 Pentagon report commissioned by former Defense Secretary James Mattis said that rates for genital surgery are exceedingly low, -2% of transgender men and 10% of transgender women. The transgender movement is diverse, so the different factions have competing goals and priorities. It includes feminists who wish to blur distinctions between the two sexes, people who glamorize the distinctions between the two sexes, masculine autogynephile men who demand sex from lesbians, as well as revenue-seeking drug companies and medical service providers. It includes wealthy donors, ambitious politicians, and professional advocates. The movement also includes sexual liberationists and many progressives who are eager to liberate people from their bodies, non-political people who are trying to live as members of the opposite sex, high-profile children, troubled teenage girls trying to flee teenage turmoil, and people trying to detransition back to their sex, plus some parents who are eager or willing to endorse transgender claims. Polls show the transgender ideology is deeply unpopular, especially among women and parents. In 2017, former President Barack Obama told NPR that his promotion of the transgender ideology made it easier for Donald Trump to win the presidency. Multiple polls show that most Americans wish to help and comfort people who think they are a member of the opposite sex, even as they also reject the transgender ideology's claim that people's legal sex is determined by their feeling of gender identity, not by biology. A UK survey shows a similar mix of sympathy for people who say they are transgender alongside lopsided opposition to the ideology. Yet the gender ideology is rapidly gaining power, aided by huge donations from wealthy individuals and medical companies. In Ohio, for example, in February 2018, a judge forced parents of a teenage girl to give up custody so she can begin a lifetime of drug treatments and surgery that will allow her to appear as a male. The progressive push to bend Americans' attitudes and their male and female civic society around the idea of gender identity has already attacked and cracked many of the popular social rules that help Americans manage the cooperation and competition among and between complementary, different, and equal men and women. These pro-gender claims have an impact on different sex bathrooms, shelters for battered women, sports leagues for girls, hiking groups for boys, K-12 curricula, university speech codes, religious freedoms, free speech, the social status of women, parents' rights in childrearing, children's safety, practices to help teenagers, health outcomes, women's ideals of beauty, culture and civil society, scientific research, prison safety, civic ceremonies, school rules, men's sense of masculinity, law enforcement, military culture, and children's sexual privacy. Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation, 2020 Democratic presidential hopeful former Representative Beto O'Rourke, DTX, said President Donald Trump was escalating tensions and was provoking yet another war in the Middle East with his administration's actions against Iran. Partial transcript as follows. Brennan, I want to quickly ask you about some of those things regarding veterans. Do you think President Trump was right to send these 1,500 troops to the Middle East to counter the Iran threat? O'Rourke, no. President Trump is escalating tensions, is provoking yet another war in the Middle East where we find ourselves already engaged in war in so many countries, in Iraq and Syria and Yemen, not too far from there in Libya and in Afghanistan. So, we don't need another war. We need to find a way to work with allies and partners and in some cases with our enemies. Brennan, so do you doubt the U.S. intelligence that said there was a threat on the ground to U.S. forces in Iraq? O'Rourke, I have a really hard time believing this administration and believing a president who has so wantonly lied and misconstrued the facts at every single turn to his own gain. I'm suspicious of a national security team that has so often called for war. You have someone in Bolton, who has publicly said that he wants regime change in Iran. The body count in that kind of war on both sides will not be measured in the hundreds or the thousands but the tens or hundreds of thousands. If there is a peaceful alternative to this, and I know that there is, then we must do everything within our power to pursue it. And that's what I would do in my administration. I'd stick up for our values, make sure that we defend our allies, protect the lives of our fellow Americans. But do that peacefully where we can. Otherwise, we will produce more wars, more veterans coming back to this country seeking the care that they are being effectively and functionally denied today. I think we need to do far better going forward, and I know that we can. Left-wing actress Alyssa Milano slammed veteran actor Jon Voight's recent remarks praising President Donald Trump, calling the Academy Award-winning star an F-lister trying to stay relevant. In a pair of videos entitled "To My Fellow Americans," Voight lauded President Trump for confronting creeping leftism in the United States and their absurd words of the destruction. The Ray Donovan star also called Trump the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln. I've said this once and I'll say it again, that our nation has been built on the solid ground from our forefathers. And there is a moral code of duty that has been passed on from President Lincoln, he said. Alyssa Milano took to social media to criticize Voight's remarks, saying, "Now I understand why Republicans like to discredit actors and our political views. Stay in your lane, John. Has been. F-lister trying to stay relevant. Nobody cares what an out-of-touch actor thinks," Milano said about Voight, whose career spans 7 decades and includes 4 Academy Award nominations and 1 win. Milano has made national headlines in recent weeks for her vocal opposition to Georgia's Heartbeat Bill, one of several pro-life laws passed in the U.S. this year. She even went as far as to call for women to join her in a sex strike to protest the abortion laws. In response to her activism, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, R., mocked her as C-list celebrity who was merely squawking. "We're elected to do what's right, and standing up for precious life is always the right thing to do," Kemp told state lawmakers earlier this month. "We are the party of freedom and opportunity. We value and protect innocent life, even though that makes C-list celebrities squawk." Austrian People's Party leader Sebastian Kurz has been formally removed as Austrian Chancellor following a non-confidence vote passed by the Social Democrats and the Populist Freedom Party. At just after 4 p.m. local time, a vote of non-confidence in the government of Sebastian Kurz was carried in the Austrian parliament, which sees the downfall of both him as Austrian Chancellor and the rest of his ministers. The vote was initially proposed by Social Democrat, S.P.O. leader Pamela Rendi-Wagner, who addressed Kurz saying, "You have said a lot, but have not yet said that your government has failed. You alone are responsible for it." The motion of non-confidence comes in the wake of the so-called visa scandal that saw former Freedom Party leader and former Vice-Chancellor Heinz Christian Streeck, along with former Vienna Deputy Mayor Johann Gittens, secretly recorded in a villa in 2017, allegedly trying to help the niece of a Russian oligarch purchase Austrian newspaper Kronenzeitung in exchange for media influence and government contracts. The woman, who claimed to be the niece of Igor Makarov, turned out to be a decoy, and the footage was unseen until the week before the European parliamentary elections. Mr. Streeck immediately resigned as vice-chancellor and as leader of the FPO, but following the revelations, Chancellor Kurz also demanded the resignation of Interior Minister Herbert Kickl. Eder Kickl refused. He was fired, and along with him every single FPO minister also quit their positions in solidarity. Early Friday morning, the new FPO leader, former presidential candidate Norbert Hofer, told the press that he would be supporting Rudy Wagner's confidence motion, guaranteeing enough votes to bring down the Kurz government, which will have to be replaced by federal President Alexander Van der Bellen by an interim caretaker government before new elections can be held in the autumn. Kurz's reign as Austrian leader marks the shortest in Austria's post-war history at only 525 days and comes after his party, the OVP, dominated the polls in Sunday's European election, grabbing 34.9% of the vote.